That was a clip of me with Jorge Ben Jor at Yoshi San Francisco. In this video, we're going to talk about how I got that gig. If you enjoy this video and the other content on my channel, please click the like, hit subscribe, and if you're feeling very generous, there is a Patreon link in the description box below where you can access exclusive content and support the future of this channel. This story starts in August of 2013, August 7th, 2013 to be exact. I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to get a gig at one of my favorite clubs in New York called New Blue on the Lower East Side, East Village. I booked myself a gig with Jorge Continentino, the saxophonist from Forró in the Dark, Itaguara Brandão, amazing bass player who has played with Angelique Kidjo, Yvonne Lins, Diane Reeves, and Rogerio Boccato, who has played drums and percussion with people like Wayne Shorter. I'm incredibly honored to be able to call all of these people friends, and this gig in August 2013 was the first time we had all played together. I had been trying to invite all three of these guys up to Montreal, and it just wound up being easier for me to go down to New York and play a gig with them. For those of you who don't know New Blue in the East Village, it is the hub for creative Brazilian music in New York City and was the birthplace of some really beautiful bands and artists in the late 2000s and early 2010s, and it continues to be strong to this day. It's definitely my home away from home in New York. I got this gig in August as the opening set, the early set at New Blue, opening for my friend Davi Vieira, also from Forró in the Dark, and also of David Byrne's American Utopia band. I told Davi in advance that I was playing with Jorge and Itaguara and Rogerio, and he basically hired the same band, and it became one huge party. To be totally honest, the gig was not my finest hour. I was playing on the house roads at New Blue, which had half the keys that didn't work. I had to get my friend Steve Salcedo to get his Nord Electro out of the trunk of his car midway through the gig. We did not rehearse for this gig. It was basically a pickup gig. I sent those guys my music in advance and some covers that I knew they played. It was basically a little bit more organized than a jam session. And not a lot of people were there. I had some friends who live in New York who showed up. Anyway, at the end of our set, Jorge Continentino introduces me to this very nice gentleman wearing sunglasses in a very dark club, and introduces me to him only by the name Jorge. This man, Jorge, says to me, "Rhodes play very good." And in my head, I'm thinking, I recognize that voice, but I can't place it, and it's so out of context and unexpected for me. And we chat, but I had no idea who it was. And then this gentleman crosses to the other side of New Blue where there's lamps and better lighting, and I can see his face more clearly, and I realize, oh my God, that's Jorge Ben Jor. Now let's rewind to when I started getting seriously into Brazilian music around 2005, 2006. One of the first purchases I made was Jorge Ben Jor MTV Acústico, MTV Unplugged Brazilian version. It is a classic DVD. It's the first time Jorge plays acoustic guitar in something like 30 years, and is the only time he's played acoustic guitar since the late 60s. That record became a textbook for me for Brazilian swing, Brazilian pocket, Brazilian groove. I love that DVD. So let's go back to New Blue 2013. Once I realized who that very nice man who gave me that compliment was, I go back up to him on the other side of the club and I ask him what he's doing in New York and thank him again for his kind comments. The part of the story that I didn't learn until later is that Jorge walked into the club during my set and went straight to the DJ Greg Kaz and asked Greg, who is that piano player? I didn't know Greg personally at the time. We only became friendly after this gig, or during this gig actually, but he did not know who I was. So I can only imagine what Greg said to Jorge. The rest of that night, it's the bartender's birthday. David's playing with the same band, or almost the same band that I had. Rogerio had to leave, and Adriano Santos was playing drums with David that night. And it just became a massive party and hang. Everybody in the club was super excited that Jorge Ben Jor was there. It was a really beautiful atmosphere, beautiful vibe. And of course, David asked Jorge if he wanted to come sit in and sing. Jorge agreed, and I was at the end of the bar, the other end of the bar, talking to Greg. Once I realized what was going on, I went back towards the stage of Nublu and asked Jorge Continentino if we could reopen the roads, the broken roads. He gave me a nod of approval, and halfway through the song, I sat down and jumped in and started jamming with the guys. And Jorge Ben turns around and gives me 2 thumbs up. Now, if my story ended there, I would be perfectly happy as a kid from the suburbs of Toronto who had discovered Brazilian music relatively late in life. I was maybe 20 when I started getting into Brazilian music seriously. To have the seal of approval of one of my favorite artists was good enough for me. I'm on the bus back to Montreal a couple of days later, and I write to Greg over Facebook saying, hey, it was great to finally meet you and to talk to you, and what a great night that was. And he responds to me, yeah, I had dinner with Jorge last night, and he kept talking about the Canadian piano player. Also good enough for me. About a week after this, Greg gets tagged in a Facebook poster, Jorge Ben, One Night Only, BB King's New York, November 2013. I immediately write to him, and I ask him who the agent is, who the booker is, to try and set up a gig for Jorge here in Montreal. Greg's response to me was, oh, here's the name of the booking agent, but actually, Jorge asked me to ask you, can you do the entire US tour? Let me think. Yes. My official contract, if you want to call it that, was a conversation with Dominguez, his wife and manager, which consisted of 3 sentences. Are you available? Yes. Do you know his music? Yes. Great. See you in Miami. Ciao. I had no charts. I had no set list. I had no audio. I had nothing. So off to YouTube I went. Actually, my first stop was the MTV Acústico DVD, which at that point I hadn't watched for a little bit, and I transcribed the entire concert, the entire DVD. And from there, I was off to YouTube, because I knew that an MTV Unplugged show is not necessarily representative of what he would be playing live. And thankfully, he had just done Multi-Show, a huge festival, and the whole set was filmed and up on YouTube at that point. So there was my textbook of what a set was likely to look like. And I transcribed all of that as well. So I show up in Miami with my 4 pages of notes, and I hope that that will be what gets me through the show. Remember, no charts outside of the notes I had made, no set list sent to me, and no audio sent to me. I was on my own. I get a call from Zé Mario, one of the drummers on the tour, and he says, Jorge's meeting us in the lobby of the hotel at 8 p.m. Be down in the lobby at 8. Okay. Jorge shows up, and it's me, Zé, Daji Carvalho from Novos Baianos, from Jorge Ben's band, from Tribalistas. It's the 4 of us in the hotel lobby in Miami. Jorge is playing a guitarlele, which is tuned 1/4 too high. If a guitar is tuned in E, the guitarlele is tuned to A, so everything's in the wrong key, and we just play through the tunes and go for dinner. I don't have a keyboard in this hotel lobby, so I'm playing percussion on the couch and singing. That was the extent of our rehearsal before we go in to the Fillmore Miami Beach. I don't usually get nervous for gigs. I was petrified for this show. We get to sound check and Jorge turns around and asks me, "So what do you know?" And I show him my 4 pages of notes. And that became the show. My deal with Jorge was, as long as I could see your hands on the neck of the guitar, we'll be cool. So that's the story of how I found myself on tour with a Brazilian icon. If there's a lesson in it, yes, it was sheer luck that Jorge happened to walk into New Blue that night, the night that I was playing, but it wasn't luck that I had a gig at New Blue, and it wasn't luck that I was able to fulfill the responsibilities that I was able to hang on that gig. Lots of ear training, lots of practice, lots of resourcefulness. So if you're a young musician watching this, that would be my advice to you, is that you never know who's going to walk in on any given show. Always play the best that you can, always be nice to people, and always be open to whatever opportunity might come your way.